Okay, cool. So we'll start off by with you just sharing who you are and maybe where you're from.
I'm Najayda. I'm from Palmy and Fielder, and I've been back and forth a little bit over the years. I'm 22 and I'm a solo mum to 3 children.
Fuck, you're a young buck. Shit.
Yeah.
Awesome. And where are you currently residing?
I'm currently in Levin. I'm actually not really liking it. I want to move back to Palmy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Winning. And what made you want to, because I know you've got a little bit of anxiety and things like that.
Yeah.
What made you want to push through that and come on to the Let Me Speak campaign and share your story?
I want to educate people that don't know much about an addiction and give them a better understanding of what it is or what us addicts go through. I had a little trouble with that with my parents, because they had no idea what I was up to, and I actually reached out for help and I didn't get it straight away.
Wow.
And also I hope that maybe someone could relate to me and I could help them with what I've said, or even if someone learns something. And I want to let everybody know that everything we lost due to our addiction, we do get back.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome. So where does your journey with addiction begin?
I want to go back to when I was 5. I had a traumatic event that really had an impact on me.
Yeah.
For my whole life. I was with my dad, because I've been brought up with my mum and my stepdad, but occasionally I'd go stay with my dad on the weekends or whatever. And I was 5 years old, and this one time the armed defenders were there. And being 5, I didn't know who they were.
Yeah,
and they got guns and stuff, and I remember walking outside, and they all got guns, and they're staring at me, and I'm like, where even is my dad? And I had no idea what was going on. My mum pulled up, and I just seen her. I went running to her, and then I got grabbed by the armed defender, and she got grabbed. And then later on that night, it was on the news.
Wow.
Later on, as I grew up, I found out that someone had escaped prison and was hiding out at my dad's house, and I had no idea. My dad's meth addict himself and gang affiliated and whatnot. And as I grew up, I learnt more about what he gets up to, and that his life was different to me and Mum's. And then when I was about 14, just jumping a bit, I was hanging out with the wrong crowd a little bit, and at school, and I was smoking weed, smoking synthetics, like legals, and
So your life, your upbringing with your mum was totally different to when you would go and stay with your dad?
yeah, it's because I was brought up pretty well with my mum and my stepdad. Had everything I wanted or needed. We went to Australia and Rarotonga and stuff like that. I had a really good upbringing from them. And then going to my dad, it was being with a meth addict, but I didn't know at such a young age, and we're going to people's houses and I'm sitting in the car waiting for him to come out, yeah. So when I was 14, I remember, I don't know, ever since smoking meth, I've got real bad memory, but I was holding some things for a friend on the bus one time, and it was alcohol, a packet of smokes and a tinny, and my parents found it in my room, and they sent me to Australia to live with my grandparents, and I went straight away pretty much. It was a one-way ticket, so it freaked me out a little bit. I was like, what the hell? Felt like my parents didn't want me, and so I was there for about 3 months. I didn't get along with my grandparents, so they sent me back to New Zealand, and I think my dad's been in and out of jail my whole life, but when he would write to me, but he must have thought I was still in Australia because I hadn't heard a phone call from him. I received a letter in the mail thinking, he's written to me, and I was reading this letter, and it was 9 pages long, and it wasn't from my dad, it was actually from someone else from a different prison, and he was grooming me. The whole 9 pages was of grooming me.
How the fuck did he even find you?
I have no idea. It freaked me out because he was like, I hope I can get your number approved, and he had it written down on the paper. He knew my full name, my address obviously, and I freaked out. I was like, what the hell?
And how old were you, sorry?
14.
Wow.
Yeah, so that used to freak me out, and I was already having thoughts when I was little that, you know, because of the armed defenders squad, that they were after me or my dad, or, you know, I didn't understand. And then I get this letter and I'm like, oh my God, what if this person gets out and he's after me and he finds me? Or I used to freak out quite a bit. Yeah, and it was just grooming me the whole time, like making out he was somebody he wasn't. Like, send me a picture of your friends and stuff. I'm a good artist. I can draw. Like, I hope you're as beautiful as your name sounds. Like, stuff like that.
What the fuck?
Yeah, 9 pages long. And I freaked out. I thought it was my dad giving out my
Details.
Yeah. And apparently it wasn't. Later on, he found out that because he was in prison, but the different prison to that person that and he said that the prison guards contacted the other prison guards, and it turns out that that person that wrote me a letter was actually in there for rape. So that freaked me out even more. Yeah, so then from there I kind of just went downhill. I ended up having depression and anxiety, multiple suicide attempts, and I got kicked out of school. And then I wasn't getting along with my parents. We were just constantly fighting and arguing, and the police were getting involved and stuff like that. And then I think when I was about 16, I left home. I ended up pregnant with my son, and I got my own place, my own house, and I ended up getting into a fight with my son's dad at the time, and he actually strangled me and knocked me out cold. And that freaked me out as well. And then I ended up meeting my girl's dad. I've got 2 daughters, and they've got the same dad, and I met him. And the meth addiction started from when I was with him. He was going to work, and I was going to a teen parent unit doing my NCA levels. And he was hanging out with people from work on weekends that were smoking meth occasionally, and he was asking me if he could do it, and I said no because of how my dad was. And I was going no, and it was turning into a fight, and then I just was like, fuck, do it then, you know. He ended up doing it, and then I ended up doing it, and it went from a once a weekend thing to a everyday thing. And then this one day we were asleep, and I woke up to the police standing over me, and they were like, are you missing a little blonde boy? And I was like, what? How did you get inside? And they're like, the door was open. And I went and checked, my son wasn't there, and I started freaking out, and I was like, where is he? And he was actually 3 streets over from where we were. And that freaked me out, and I said to my partner at the time, no, we can't be doing this.
Did he get out of the house?
Yeah, because it was just one of those clicking there, and you just turn it and it opens. So that freaked me out hard out. So we're like, no, we can't do it again, but we ended up still doing it, and it just got worse every day, and then they come down, and it just got worse.
What was that like when you wouldn't have any drugs?
I was just sleeping, you know, barely being able to be parents. Like, he stopped working, I stopped going to course. He couldn't go to work because he was either too fried to go to work, or he wouldn't wake up to his alarm. So our life started going downhill. We ended up having like arguments and very physical abuse all the time. The cops were getting involved. Oranga Tamariki got involved.
Would it be worse when you didn't have drugs, do you reckon? Like, especially the abuse? Or
we barely fought before drugs. Like, we have future plans and everything. Like, everything was just great. Life was great. No, I mean,
like, if you ran out
of
drugs, so you would have to come down.
We did have to come down, but it didn't get that bad at that point. It was when we were doing it too much. That's when it got bad. So at that point it was bad, but not that bad. So we ended up moving into a new house, and that's when it got real bad. Oranga Tamariki got involved. They put, I was pregnant with my third, and they took the two children and put them into his mum's care.
Yeah.
And so I was in this house by myself, didn't get the benefit for the kids, so I was behind the rent. So I ended up getting the rent arrears paid, and then I got a new place, so ended up moving there. Stole my kids back pretty much, but the meth, I was still smoking meth, heavily pregnant, and I still feel really bad to this day of doing that. And
there was nothing that, there wasn't any kind of thing that was like, fuck, I'm pregnant, I need to stop. Or...
Yeah, I wanted to stop, and it wasn't that I couldn't, it was I was too scared to. Like, you know how they say,
because you can stress the baby out.
Yeah, if you stop, or like even smoking cigarettes, if you stop, it freaked me out. So I was like, I'll stop this week, and it never happened. And then by the time I was like 20 weeks, 25 weeks pregnant, I was like, oh no, I can't stop now.
Yeah.
And then also I had kidney stones, and this one time I ended up in hospital just screaming in agony. They actually thought I was in labour, but it was my kidney stones. My kidney was enlarged and actually stopped working. And because of being pregnant, it was a high risk of doing anything, and it was also a high risk in the pregnancy. My daughter ended up coming a week and a half early, but there was no complications there, so I was grateful for that. Ended up getting another new place, and me and the kid's dad had already broken up before baby was born, but he was still staying at mine and trying to help me with the kids. Not that was really going, because he was always asleep and I was always up for too long trying to do all the kids, and the daycare started making a complaint, like writing a list of things I was doing wrong. They ended up taking it to Oranga Tamariki, and I didn't know that until one day I didn't wake up again, and I woke up to the cops knocking on the door.
Yeah. And
they said, you haven't picked your kids up from daycare, and I freaked out. I was like, oh no, not this again. So yeah, apparently that day they actually had 2 carloads ready to go and pick my kids up from daycare, and that freaked me right out. So we ended up having another Oranga Tamariki meeting, and they put my kids in my mum's care, and then I ended up going out with a gang member, and he ended up pretty much bashing me. He gave me the biggest black eye I've ever had ever, and that freaked me out as well. At that point I was like, what am I doing? Like,
was that the pivotal moment?
No, not quite. Because I just lost my kids, so I was still seeing my kids, but I didn't see them for a while because my eyes took ages to go down. I didn't want to see them with it like that.
Yeah.
So I didn't see them for a couple of weeks, and my parents are like, what's this girl doing? She just doesn't even see her kids, But I was trying to hide some things. Yeah. And then I again got behind in rent because of not getting that benefit. So I got evicted, and I had nowhere else to go, so I was staying there for another 12 weeks not paying rent. I ended up moving everything I owned into the garage, and then I was sleeping in my car, and I went back to get my grab certain things, and everything was gone.
Wow.
Everything was gone. And I was at that point, I just kept smoking meth because I was like,
how were you getting it?
For free, really, because I was like that vulnerable person that people try to feed me up on pee sort of thing. I had a couple of people during my come down, one of my back door got broken, and I had like this rope tied around it, and someone actually macheted their way in through it and was standing at the end of my bed, and I woke up and I heard something, and he was just standing in the dark, and I was like, who's that? Like, who's that? Turn the light on. Who the hell's that? And yeah, it was someone I knew, but I was like, what the hell are you doing, And then that happened another 2 more times by 2 other people, just, breaking into my house and just standing at the end of my bed, or just like sitting on the couch in my room waiting for me to wake up. Like, it started getting really like creepy, and I was getting grossed out. So the gang member that I was with, that I'd broken up with, I ended up getting him to stay to make me feel safer. And the person that macheted his way inside, he turned up and saw the other fella like at my house, and he ended up flipping everything in the garage, like flipped the couches, slammed the door, like picked the shit like it was hard out. Just little freaky stuff like that. And then this car I had, about three times I think it got taken by gang members, and I got it back on my own. My dad was in the picture at this time, and he was going around with, guns and stuff, trying to find out who had my car. He had guns pulled on him, and I jumped in front of them, stuff like that. That was pretty freaky stuff. So yeah, definitely when I lost my kids, I went downhill real quick. It got worse. Just creepy and worse, and then I ended up leaving because all my stuff was gone from the garage. So I went and stayed with another gang member. Yeah. And probably not the best thing to do, but I did anyway. And we ended up, to get the drug, we were stealing cars and stealing things out of cars and selling it, and that's how we were getting the drug to smoke it. And then he was really controlling. He had like a GPS on my phone, making sure that I was, he could see where I was going. Like all my messages would pop up on his phone. Like, it was quite hard out. And my stepdad rang me and was like, I'll take you, because I caught, he's like, I was getting arrested like every week. It was real bad. So he's like, I'll take you to court. And I was like, nah, it's all right, I've got a ride. So I drove myself to court, and my social worker that was there she used to deal with me when I was 14, because I was a troubled 14-year-old. So she was there, and I was like, oh, what are you doing here? And she's like, we're coming to save you. I said, what do you mean? And she's like, well, you're going to stay with your stepdad, you can't be doing this, are you even trying to get your kids back, sort of thing. And I was actually already a week clean off meth, I think. I hadn't smoked it for a week because the person I was staying with wasn't letting me see my kids. And all I could think about every night I lay in bed, just like, oh, I just want my kids back. Like, and they ended up having sessions and stuff around me, and I just walked away. I was just like, nah. I was doing my makeup in the bathroom, and they were, having a session. I was just like, fuck. Like, this is so hard, but this is, that's what made me give it up, was just that thought of my kids need me. Like, I've got my parents looking after them. Like, they need me. So, yeah, I kind of saved myself a little bit. And so then when we were at the courthouse, I said, I've got the car. And they said, oh, well, that was, a good one. I dropped the car off. So I dropped the car off, and they ended up leaving. So I texted my stepdad and I said, yeah, meet me now. And because there was cameras outside the house, he met me down the road. The person I was staying with left the house. I packed all my stuff up and just walked out the door, jumped in his car and threw my phone in the creek. I didn't actually really, I got given a lot of clothes because I didn't even have shoes. Like a social worker I was going to a MASH rehab, someone there gave me a pair of shoes because I didn't have shoes. And yeah, gave me heaps of clothes and took me to the warehouse and brought me blankets and stuff like that. Like I had nothing. And then I ended up going to rehab in Wellington. And it was good staying with my parents because my kids were there, but it was real hard being there because I'm trying to parent my kids while they're in my ear, or they're trying to parent the kids while I'm trying to. It just wasn't working. Yeah. So me and my stepdad would argue, and also I left there at 16 because of the arguing, and going back to that was like, yeah, what do I do? So I ended up leaving, and I did go back to the gang member that I was with, and the cops just kept coming back and were having punch-ups, and I was just like, oh, I'm so close to getting my kids. I've just been to rehab, and what am I doing? So I ended up contacting Work and Income, and they put me in a women's hostel sort of thing in Fielding. So I was there, and then and I moved from there to live in, got like my place that I'm at now, and 2 years later, I just got my kids back like 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 years later. So I've got all my kids back now, and it's been hard work because I haven't had them for so long, and they're just there now. Yeah, and they just like fight every day, and it's hard to keep up, but it's good. It's such a different feeling, and people are like, you should be proud, but I don't feel proud. I just feel so grateful to have them back. Like, I can't say proud's the word. Yeah, but yeah. So today I think I'm like 1 year, 5 months clean.
Wow.
And I've got all 3 of my kids back. And I, I'm just grateful to be safe because I wasn't feeling safe back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and going through everything that I went through definitely woke me up. It was like, you're either going to die or go to jail or something, and going to jail was my fear, and all my charges were adding up, and I was just like, oh my God. So, yeah.
Yeah, they would have been adding up too.
Yeah, I was getting arrested like every week for like taking the rap for other people, and I was trying to be that good person, but really I was getting further away from getting my kids back.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like my kids were everything, or are everything, so I was like, nah, this is the problem, meth is the problem. That's why I had to stop doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
And it took me that one day to say, nah, I don't want to smoke it anymore, and they refused to give it to me. And then I didn't touch it from then onward. I haven't had a relapse or anything like that.
And what have you done in terms of like just to make sure that you don't go back to that?
Every day I have to remember why I'm in recovery. There are days where it can get stressful, and like with my 3 kids, or not having people come over like they used to.
Yeah.
I had to leave all those associates that I used to smoke with. I had to leave them. When I went to rehab, I learnt a lot. So everything I learnt there, I've learnt to use, like coping mechanisms and stuff like that. So, I might go for a walk, or keeping myself busy to kill that boredom, or, support is everything though.
What kind of support do you have now?
I have a couple of people that I can talk to for support. I was going to a support group in Fielding, but now because I've moved, it's a bit hard to get there. But just because of the time it's at with my 3 kids, my 3 kids can't really be there during that talk. Otherwise, they're still there, like they're still a message away. I have family. I've rebuilt the connections with my parents that I, because I pushed them away when I lost my kids. I was like, you took my kids off me, but really they actually helped me. They helped my kids.
Yeah.
They could have gone into some random's care for all I know.
True.
Yeah, so I'm grateful that my parents helped me out there.
Hard out.
Yeah.
What's your advice for young girls who keep going back to violent situations?
It's a hard question.
Or what have you learnt?
Well, it's repetitive. It's not going to stop if it's, if it keeps happening. You just kind of, I went back like 3 times, so I've now learnt. But I think I've learnt now because I'm sober. Yeah. If I was still in addiction, I think I'd probably still keep going back. But now that I'm sober, I've learnt, and I'm like, no, I can't do that because this is going to happen again. Or, all the cops getting involved is going to make me lose my kids again when I'm so close to getting them back. Like, I guess you just learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes some people learn the hardest fucking way possible, like having your children taken from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you keep doing the same shit, you're going to get the same results, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure.
So what does life look like for you and your kids now?
Great. Safe. Happy.
It's fuzzy, eh? When you have, like, I know because I had my kids taken from me too.
Yeah.
And then kind of coming back, you've got to get to know your kids all over again. Eh? They've got to get to know you. They've got to learn to test your buttons. What am I going to get away with mum?
Yeah.
And all of that. It's like a whole new fucking journey you're on now,
Still
eh?
learning, yeah. Just just the things my kids do, I'm just like, is that normal? Or like, you know, just, or trying to, I don't know, what's the word, like, not like deal with them, but not deal with them, because I haven't had them for so long. Sometimes I'm like, oh, what do I do? Like
can be a bit overwhelming.
When I come out of rehab, Mum took me back home to the kids, and I was like, why is she doing it? What do I do? Like, I was actually freaked out. I was like, hadn't seen them for 9 weeks, and I'm like, what the hell do I do? And now that they're with me full time, I'm just like, okay, this is a bit overwhelming.
Get back into routine
and then because going through my parents' routine to my routine, that's not the same. Like they're similar but not the same, and it's a bit hard. And because I'm by myself, and I don't really have support networks where I'm staying. You know, in Levin, they're more fielding ways. So it's a bit hard. I am by myself with my kids all the time, but like I said, I just do my coping mechanisms. You know, go for walks or, you know, chill out time. Even if they have to come with me. Oh, mean, man. Before we wrap this up, is there anything else you want to share to anyone watching, or maybe somebody that's going through what you went through? I think it's important to definitely have support networks and to reach out if, you know, that's the best thing you could do is reach out. I did reach out and it didn't, but I reached out to my parents that just thought, no, you're going to bring your trouble here. They didn't really understand. So, and I know a couple of people that that their kids or something have got addiction and they have no idea what it's all about, but they have to help them. Even if they don't get it.
I mean, looking back and reflecting on what you went through, what could your parents have done a little differently to maybe...
Listened.
Oh, yeah.
Because they didn't. They just assumed. And, you know, being parents, you think they'd help you and support you, and they didn't for a while. Even though they had my kids, they didn't once care about my side of the story until this one day I actually sent my mum the picture of my black eye, and she was bawling her eyes out. She actually cried herself to sleep 3 nights in a row thinking that I was actually going to be killed or dead or something. And that's kind of when they contacted my support social worker, and that's when she jumped in and helped save me, because she's like, oh my God, why didn't you tell me about this sooner? Like, you know, so definitely listening can, you know, and reaching out, or even talking to somebody that has been through similar, or knows somebody who's going through similar. It's about like having that knowledge to help.
Educating yourself, Educate yourself. I felt like that with my parents. They knew nothing of methamphetamine. And so if you don't know what it is, well, then how the fuck can you help them?
That's what I mean.
Because I don't, you know, so that would probably be a thing. Educate yourself. If you have a child that's going through addiction and shit like that, maybe just find that time to educate yourself, News. Well, on behalf of CWK, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your story with us. And you were saying that you fellas want to move, you want to get out of there.
I want to go back to Palmy. That is where it all started, but I don't know. I just know Palmy too well. I'd rather be back in Palmy where I'm closer to my mum and my family. How
do you think, so Palmy's where it all went down?
Yep.
How do you think you'll be going back into that environment?
Well, now, like today, I don't actually have a desire to use. I mean, sometimes it might cross my mind, but I'm actually strong enough to say, nah, I don't, you know, I've come this far to throw it away now. So if I do move back to Palmy, I'm just going to do what I do now. Like, I don't talk to those old associates. I'll stay away from old places that I used to have scenics at or something like that.
So you've got a plan in place.
Yeah. And you just got to know your triggers as well. Things that are going to set you off to use, like even, you know, stuff with like stress and stuff like that. you just got to deal with and learn how to deal with it.
Yeah.
Or what strategies to use to not, use. Because we're actually, well, I've changed my life around to make it easier not to use. I haven't, it's not like I haven't stopped using. I've tried to make it easier for me not to use, and it's worked for me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So eliminating all the kind of things that drove you to want to use.
Yeah.
Nah, fuck it, man. Well, man, we wish you the absolute best, you and your children.
Thank you.
For your fella's future. And yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.